The morning, washed clean by the prodigal monsoon and still garlanded with the faintest aroma of wet earth, unspooled with that peculiar ceremony known only to the newly awakened streets of Fort Kochi. Upon a modest but brightly gleaming phaeton, its carriagework the color of ripe pomegranate, and its driver, a stoic figure draped in patent leather oilskins and a burnished black cap, sat young Vikara, the ever-cheerful aspirant to Monsoon Society, whose straw boater and rose-madder linen jacket defied the sodden heavens with flagrant optimism. His turquoise and ochre satchel, monogrammed in silver thread, bespoke either an eccentric Parisian tailor or an aunt possessed of extravagant taste, while his smile, broad as the river's own crescent, radiated toward the receding mists and those few souls already abroad. "Mr. Kinney!" he called out, waving gaily to the shopkeeper, who, from beneath the striped awning of his provisioner's emporium, nodded with a warmth reserved for only the most promising of patrons. "Off to Monsoon House, Vikara? I wager their drawing-room has never seen such color." Miss Nellie Ricewell, whose parasol rivaled even the peacock for audacity, bustled over with a melodious laugh, her cheeks flushed with the joy of morning's renewal. "Save a seat near the window for me, dear boy, unless you mean to outshine us all and earn the first invitation." Their exchange, as fleeting as it was electric, sent ripples through the gathering throng. Newsboys, rickshaw coolies, and matrons in lacquered slippers all watched as the young hopeful set off down the puddled boulevard. His every gesture a supplication to fortune, and every bouncing wheel a drum roll heralding the opening act of the Monsoon Banquet's social ballet. Through the arched vestibule of Monsoon House, its pale frescoed plaster agleam with the limpid morning, there materialized, as if conjured by some beneficent genie of the season, the eminent Mr. Hadrian de Souza, a figure of urbane gravitas whose silver-threaded curls and cinnamon complexion bespoke both cosmopolitan lineage and the relentless sun of his youth. Attired in a midnight blue woolen frock coat, its lapels set off by a discreet ivory cravat, and with the faintest smile flickering about his lips, one that suggested an infinite reserve of patience for both folly and genius. He surveyed the anteroom with the equanimity of a seasoned statesman. At his left elbow, ever attentive to the shifting tides of company, stood Miss Nellie Ricewell, her laughter pealing like a chime of crystal as she introduced the day's aspirants. "Mr. de Souza, might I present Vikara, whose jacket is already the talk of the street, and whose cheerful defiance of the heavens surely marks him as a favorite with fortune herself." Mr. de Souza bestowed a brief appraising nod, his gaze lingering, not unkindly, upon the youthful monogram and the mud-spattered shoes that even the most careful steps could not avoid in Kochi's rainy court. "Well, young sir," he intoned, his baritone as measured as a banker's ledger, "Monsoon House opens its doors not merely to style or laughter, but to those whose character withstands both storm and scrutiny. Will you prove as steadfast as that jacket is bright?" The gathered guests, clerks in pale linen, matrons in filigreed silk, leaned forward in anticipation, the very air pricked with the silent music of ambition, as the first of the day's social parlor games awaited its players. The rain, like 1,000 pearl threads unwinding from heaven's own loom, cast a gentle hush upon the avenue, as Vikara, his boater now tilted rakishly against the downpour, stepped forth beneath the broad sable canopy of Miss Nellie Ricewell's umbrella. The world agleam and reborn, stretched before them in a dreamlike tableau. To their left, the whitewashed rampart of Mr. Singh's boarding house shimmered with rivulets, while a cerulean edifice stood sentinel beneath climbing jasmine. Ahead, the lone figure of Owen Kilminster, ever the ironworker even when off duty, pedaled his battered velocipede with an orange delivery crate, rumored to contain the Monsoon Society's secret ledgers, strapped behind him. The wheels audibly hissing over the cobblestones. Miss Ricewell? Do you suppose Mr. Kilminster ferries secrets as lightly as he does oranges? Vikara inquired with a low laugh, his gait splashing merrily through puddles. Miss Ricewell's answering smile was both indulgent and sharp. In this city, dear boy, even the humblest errand may mask the gravest intrigue. The quietude of the morning was punctuated only by the distant clatter of rickshaw bells and the conspiratorial flutter of Jeanette Baptine's handkerchief as she signaled from beneath the dripping veranda, her gaze darting between Vikara and the ironworker with an urgency that bespoke tidings of import. Thus, beneath the umbrella's velvet shadow, ambition and rumor mingled with the rain, drawing our hopefuls ever closer to Monsoon House, each step a wager in the city's most genteel and perilous parlor game. Upon the rain-silvered quay, where timbered walkways slick with monsoon memory jutted into the sullen embrace of the Cochin backwater, a tableau of local industry unfolded with the stateliness of a courtly ballet. There, upon the trembling planks, stood a fisherman of noble bearing, his sinews knotted like the ropes he worked, with a striped towel wound turban-wise about his brow, the badge of his hereditary craft. With grave deliberation, he summoned the great Chinese fishnet, a lattice of teak poles and creaking hemp, hoisted by a system of counterweights whose invention, the onlookers whispered, could only have sprung from the mind of a Mandarin savant. Its dripping mesh, glistening like a bridal veil beneath the pewter sky. Atop the trembling frame, an egret as pale as spun moonlight maintained its station, one beady eye fixed on the river's shifting bounty. Miss Prudence Peacham, clutching a parasol of faded lilac damask, leaned close to Dr. Henry Goodwell and murmured, "Observe, dear doctor, the patient choreography of man and river, their fortunes as entwined as any waltz at the monsoon banquet." Dr. Goodwell, whose own boots bore the honest scuffs of a man acquainted with both parlors and piers, smiled kindly. "Indeed, Miss Peacham, and let us not discount the role of our feathered friend who, like certain matrons of the drawing-room, knows well to hover where the choicest morsels might fall." As the net breached the surface, yielding a modest clutch of silvered fish to applause from assembled idlers, Mr. Vashley Ketchum, ever eager, piped up from his vantage atop a nearby crate. "Might we wager, dear Jeanette, whether the next cast will yield a banquet or a famine?" Jeanette Baptine, her eyes quick as a swallow's, replied with a knowing arch of brow. "In this city, Mr. Ketchum, both outcomes are but two sides of the same coin, and only the river, like society, decides which it will bestow. Thus, beneath the brooding firmament, while fortune and fish alike were hauled from the murk, alliances and rivalries were spun with every gesture, every ripple in the ancient water, drawing our hopefuls ever deeper into the labyrinthine intrigues of the monsoon banquet. Upon that venerable pier, its planks testament to 1,000 monsoons and the ambitions of those who trod them, Mr. Vashley Ketchum, sleeves rolled and eyes agleam with the mercantile fervor of youth, leaned over the sturdy rail, addressing Miss Prudence Peacham with a conspiratorial lilt. "You must see, Miss Peacham, the prodigious catfish I once observed whilst journeying with my uncle in the Floridian wilds. Creatures so robust, the men there capture them bare-armed, sans even the dignity of a net." Miss Peacham, whose gentle charity extended to every creature beneath the heavens, replied with a shudder and a wistful glance toward the green tub in which the day's catch glimmered. "Let us hope, dear Mr. Ketchum, that these shrimp fare better than the unfortunate denizens of your childhood aquarium. My own dear catfish, once master of its glassy realm, proved a terror to its gentle companions, and was at last dispatched, alas, down the porcelain rapids of eternity." At this, Dr. Henry Goodwell, umbrella propped against the balustrade and boots caked in honest river mud, interjected with a steady voice. "Let not our ambition be the undoing of nature's balance, friends. See there, the egret, patient as any dowager, awaits her tithe. And consider, too, the humble fisherman in his striped livery, sorting the silvery harvest that shall, in all likelihood, grace tonight's curry and tomorrow's parlor discourse." As the fisherman worked amid bundles of rope and briny odor, Jeanette Baptine, ever the observer, remarked quietly to Dr. Goodwell, "It is not merely bounty that is gathered here, but stories to season every table. Each shrimp and sullen fish a morsel for both body and legend." The conversation, buoyed by laughter and the ceaseless churning of the river, where a painted boat, like an upstart debutante, drew every eye, swelled and receded with the tide, threading together the fates of gentry and laborer, host and hopeful, all beneath the cloud-ruffled gaze of the watching monsoon. A gloom as lustrous as old pewter wrapped the wooden causeway, its weathered planks now a stage for the quiet industry of Kerala's fisherfolk, whose labors beneath the overcast heavens bespoke both centuries of tradition and the sly encroachments of modernity. Dr. Henry Goodwell, umbrella tucked jauntily beneath his arm and eyes aglint with scholarly curiosity, surveyed the tableau from the platform's edge, remarking to Jeanette Baptine, whose steadfast countenance betrayed neither fatigue nor boredom. "Marvel, dear Miss Baptine, at this sublime concord between man and river. The ancient apparatus, a lattice of teak beams, creaks with every tide. Yet observe, yonder blue-capped fellow has affixed a cunning electric motor, progress yoked to heritage." Jeanette, brushing a damp curl from her brow, replied with gentle conviction, "One must hope, Doctor, that such advances do not wholly efface the poetry of muscle and memory. This calm day at the nets is rich with the ghosts of effort and song." At that moment, Owen Kilminster, his boots slick with rain and arms burdened by a tangled skein of ropes, strode across the glistening timbers, calling out with a voice both hearty and reassuring, "Worry not for the river's bounty, friends. The wheel of fortune spins. Too many of one kind spells ruin for another. Nature, like society, requires a firm if unseen hand." Their words, born on the humid monsoon air, mingled with the briny scent of shrimp and the distant melancholy whistle of a steamer, as the fishermen's laughter, rich and unhurried, rose above the clatter of baskets and the city's far-off discord, a reminder that, on such platforms, fortunes and reputations were netted as surely as any fish, and every day's labor became grist for the ever-turning mill of parlor gossip. The promenade of Fort Kochi, in that hour when the monsoon's hand had painted every stone and leaf with the glimmering lacquer of its passing, unfurled as a corridor of reverie and intrigue, each puddle a tiny mirror, each breath of briny air, heavy with the scent of distant ambitions and recent disquiet. Here, beneath the watchful silhouette of a titanic, rust-crowned cylinder, cordoned with iron chains upon a plinth of polished granite, and whispered by all to be a relic of the last company war, Dr. Henry Goodwell paused, umbrella deftly angled, his boots reflecting the dappled light like tokens on a game board. "Observe, Miss Baptine," he intoned, his gaze traversing from the monument's stern bulk to the row of brightly canopied stalls, where a solitary vendor, resplendent in his saffron turban, hawked sweet lime and fried plantain to a clientele sparse but discerning. How the city, even in its moments of rain-soaked stillness, throbs with the pulse of commerce and memory, the ghost of empire in iron, the hope of tomorrow in every glistening coin exchanged beneath those awnings. Jeanette Baptine, her silk skirts lifted just so above the wet flagstones, replied with a most genteel smile. "And what is the sea if not the city's own drawing-room, Doctor? See there, beyond the emerald arcade of the almond trees, the Arabian waves bear not just trade, but rumor. And each umbrellaed walker is a courier in society's endless masquerade." At this, Owen Kilminster, who had been surveying the horizon with the stoic vigilance of his trade, remarked, "Aye, and let no one forget that even in such quietude, fortunes are made and lost on such days. The rain may empty the promenade of idlers, but it fills the heart with schemes." Thus, as the three companions lingered amidst the dripping boughs and the soft susurrus of the vendor's entreaties, the very air seemed charged with the anticipation of the banquet to come. Every raindrop a harbinger of secrets yet to be revealed beneath the gaslit grandeur of Monsoon House. And so, beneath the amber glow of intricately wrought sconces and amidst the gentle susurrus of ceiling fans, whose lazy revolution was as much balm as spectacle, the young aspirant Vikara found himself ushered by the solicitous maître d' into the inner sanctum of Fort Kochi's famed Lotus Parlor. There, the empty hush of the hour, a lull between the morning's tumult and the evening's impending pageant, bestowed upon the scene an air of privileged intimacy. Seated at a mahogany table with caned chairs, their backs lacquered to a honeyed sheen, Vikara, his straw boater and rose madder jacket now exchanged for a pale muslin waistcoat, surveyed the banquet unfurled before him. A sprawling banana leaf, its dewy green a herald of abundance, upon which gleamed fragrant towers of white rice, crisp sheets of papadum, and a rainbow of curries, chutneys, and pickles arrayed in miniature silver salvers. Dr. Henry Goodwell, whose arrival was signaled by the polite cough of a liveried attendant, doffed his hat and beamed with avuncular pride. "You dine, sir, as a Maharaja at the court of the monsoon. To savor each grain, each morsel, is to partake in the very legacy of this city's tides." Jeanette Baptine, ever the gentle observer, poured a stream of rosewater into a dainty tumbler and whispered, "Remember, Vikara, each dish is a chapter in the parlor's unending tale. The tang of the sambar for the daring, the sweetness of payasam for the fortunate." Owen Kilminster, entering with boots freshly dried and brow untroubled, clapped Vikara on the shoulder. "Eat heartily, lad, for in this house the pleasures of the table are as keenly watched as those of the drawing-room, and fortunes may turn on the breaking of a papadum." Laughter, warm and unfeigned, fluttered through the sunlit chamber as the conspirators of the afternoon raised steel tumblers in a toast not only to the banquet, but to the fragile, golden peace brokered in those rare hours when the city's ambitions paused to honor the simple, enduring joys of friendship and food. It was in the golden hush of the Lotus Parlor, its ochre walls aglow with the lambent embrace of afternoon sun, filtered through gauzy curtains stitched with peacocks and jasmine vines, that Vikara, adorned in a roseate waistcoat and the raffish tilt of his straw boater, presided over a repast worthy of any viceroy's court or society matron's envy. The great banana leaf lay before him, a verdant altar upon which the rituals of appetite and ambition would unfold. Rice piled in snowy domes, each grain perfumed and separate as pearls. Silver salvers brimming with curries of auburn, emerald, and saffron. The crisp architecture of papadum, arranged with deliberate flourish, and a constellation of chutneys, pickles, and curd, every hue a herald of empire and invention. Dr. Henry Goodwell, ever the benevolent patriarch, leaned forward, his eyes twinkling behind round spectacles, and intoned, "Young sir, you have before you the geography of Kerala's heart. Let each taste be a journey, for the palate, too, is a vessel of discovery." At this, Jeanette Baptine, dabbing her brow with a cambric handkerchief embroidered with narcissus, added in a tone both practical and motherly, "Remember to begin at the edge, Vikara, lest the sambar breach its boundaries and compromise the integrity of your leaf. Society, like cuisine, expects propriety even in pleasure." Owen Kilminster, sunburnt and still faintly redolent of the wharf, offered a conspiratorial wink and declared, "Let no man claim he knows the world until he's braved the fire of that green chili chutney. Fortune favors the bold and the hungry alike." As Vikara mixed the rice with a measured application of curry, his hand guided by hunger but checked by etiquette, a chorus of epistolary missives, folded notes, and murmured asides fluttered along the tables. "You always eat the choicest fare, sir," cooed a voice from behind a paisley fan, while another, more arch, remarked, "Ah, the burdens of celebrity, endless banquets, infinite scrutiny." Through this interplay of culinary pageantry and drawing-room repartee, the simple act of dining became both spectacle and rite, as every spoonful and every jest wove Vikara ever deeper into the gilt-edged tapestry of Kochi's Monsoon Society. Upon the rain-sheltered terrace of Monsoon House, whose rose-clay tiles gleamed like agate beneath the persistent caress of the downpour, Dr. Henry Goodwell and Miss Nellie Ricewell found themselves momentarily alone, the day's revelers dispersed by fatigue, satiation, or schemes yet unhatched. The mossy balustrade, tangled with jasmine and maidenhair, framed a prospect of mist-laden trees and, beyond, the spectral shimmer of water glimpsed through veils of falling rain. Here, in the hush that follows both banquet and storm, Dr. Goodwell leaned his umbrella, now battered into docility, against the rail, and regarded the leaden sky with an air of cheerful resilience. "Miss Ricewell," he ventured, voice rich with restorative warmth, "I dare say Fortune herself has lingered upon this terrace, if only to savor the perfume of wet earth and the triumph of a day unmarred by true misfortune." Nellie, her hands folded demurely atop the balustrade and her eyes brimming with the gentle pride of one who has successfully shepherded both guest and gossip through the shoals of high society, replied with a soft laugh, "And yet, Doctor, is it not the quiet after grandeur, the tranquil music of rain, the promise of another gathering, that reminds us most keenly of our blessings?" I fancy the city beyond this garden holds its breath, awaiting the next chapter. A distant peal of thunder punctuated her words, while the rain, persistent but tender, continued its secret parley with the river and the roots. In that suspended hour, as the world lay cloaked in monsoon's velvet embrace, the two friends exchanged a look, resolute, wistful, and ever hopeful, knowing that, beneath the terrace's arching vines and within the hearts of those who had dined together, the true riches of the season were neither coin nor reputation, but the camaraderie distilled in moments such as these.